Hello and welcome to another edition of LinkedIn Live brought to you by Mana Wellness. Thank you for tuning in today. For today's LinkedIn Live, we have with us Manju Menon, Learning and Development Director at Odessa. A quick introduction to our guest today. Manju Menon is a seasoned professional in the field of learning and development with over 17 years of experience in designing and implementing impactful training programs that help team members gain critical skills and grow. Manju's expertise in various learning management systems and project management is unmatched. Interestingly, Manju is also a strong advocate of mental well-being and mental health awareness. And Manju, welcome to the session, and thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for
much.
joining us today.
Thank you so much, Manoj. It's my pleasure.
Manju, as our audience begin to wonder why do we have a learning and development specialist speak to us on mental health, let's dive straight into the questions and
Sure.
get your insights on some very interesting questions that lay ahead of us. So
Sure.
to begin with, Manju, tell us how have you seen skilling help employees beyond their work roles?
Well, see, it's very interesting that the moment we use the word skill, it's always okay. Am I skilled with project management? Am
Hmm.
I skilled with a particular technical skill? But skilling always is all about holistic skilling. So while yes, of course, we build our academics, we build our knowledge on certain things, human skills is very very important, and that's called holistic skilling. So it's very interesting if you notice in today's academic world also, there is now a subject called life skills, and that is what is very very important from a skilling perspective, right? So I'll give you a simple example in the L&D world, and this is something that we face real time in organizations that I've worked with, right? um, so we have a lot of SMEs. So we have SMEs on Python, we have SMEs on Java, we have SMEs on Excel, PowerPoint, you name it, we have it, right? But being an SME versus transferring that knowledge to somebody else in layman's terms is a skill,
Hmm.
right? So you have the skills of being that SME. But when I call that SME and say, hey, buddy, can you teach this 5-year-old
Right.
what Excel is all about in very layman term? That's called knowledge transference skill. And that requires a softer skill of simplifying communication, simplifying the subject. So that's what I would call skill. And that's where, most workplaces today don't emphasize on,
Hmm.
right? Where holistic skilling is very important. So that's why that's my 2 cents on what, like, how workplace skilling in plus human skills, I like to call it human skills or life skills, will take you beyond just having knowledge on certain things.
Thank you, Manju. And that's very interesting term that you've used here. Not life skill, but human skills.
Yes.
Skills that make us human being and
Correct.
that help us build that differentiator. And so how have you seen, particularly over the last few years, organizations understand the importance of human skills and focus on it and build that skill for their employees?
So a lot, I mean, we've always built technical and process skills.
Yes.
Okay, that's always been there, and that's always. So when I started my L&D journey, and it's about 20 years ago actually, it was all about, you train on the process, you train on
Mm.
the technology, and you're all set. Then as we grow up the ladder, and organizations also started evolving, we noticed that okay, training on technology, training on processes is great, but what are the human skills that will create holistic learning? Which means a simple thing like active listening is today a skill that it's a rare skill, right? Everybody wants to speak, everybody wants to be heard, but nobody wants to listen, right? And I will simply go by the thing of, there is a reason God has given you one mouth and two ears, right? So that is where building a psychologically safe environment has become important. Being inclusive has become important. Being accepting and also being authentic in the way you come to work and show up at work has become so important. But that doesn't happen naturally to everybody. And there comes in active listening. How do you be inclusive? How do you be more accepting? How do I see for example, there's an interesting training that we rolled out in my previous organization called unconscious biases, handling
Hmm.
them, right? How do we become conscious of our unconscious biases? These things never used to be done earlier. So today, organizations are giving equal importance to human skills, to developing more empathy, right?
Hmm.
Empathy and inclusion and acceptance towards everybody around you, and building an environment that everybody feels safe to be their own self, their authentic self, right? So that's
Right.
where organizations are heading today.
Great, Manju. Thank you. And human skill is also something which has not been part of our learning process, the formal learning process in the early years of our
Yeah.
childhood and all, because it has been believed that society will teach you that skill.
Mm-hmm.
You are being a part of society will make you learn the skills.
Yeah.
It's only post facto when we begin to work
Yeah.
that we realize, no, no, that doesn't happen the way we expect it to. Therefore, it needs to be formalized in some way. And
Yes.
therefore, we then identify how do we impart those skills.
Yeah.
You can call them soft skills and human skills. So that is how perhaps this is now opening up as a formal way of making sure that our employees are learning those skills.
Absolutely.
Manju, but how will an individual know that they need any of these skills? How will they know that there is a gap area and they need to pick up the skill?
So, see, as far as human skills are concerned, there is no harm in upskilling ourselves, even though we may have that skill, because we always can become better, right? I think it's very difficult to identify. So, for example, if I'm working with Odessa, right, and there, we have about 1,200, 1,300 employees, it's impossible for me to figure out from the human skills aspect of it, what are the gaps where, unless I interact with each one of them and spend time with them. But what we will do as an organization, perhaps, is say that for us to build probably a psychologically safe environment for people and the human beings in our organization to thrive, here are some things that we will run for the organization, right? So something that I believe is more knowledge never hurts. And when you attend such a session, either you pick up the skill, or you are aware that you already have it.
Hmm.
So there is no harm in attending. So that's my view on it, Manoj, to be honest.
Great.
Because human, see, from my inner friend circle or my team, I can tell probably, yes, okay, this person needs probably a little bit of this person could be a little biased, or this person is absolutely empathetic, like they're so good with and showcasing that empathy, right? But then it's impossible for an organization. So from a very workplace standpoint, it's always good for an organization to have certain must have skills that make a person human, inclusive, help them empathize, right? Those things. And then, of course, when you attend that particular workshop, you either realize that you already have it or you pick up the skill. So that's my take on it.
Brilliant, Manju. I think that's a great way of putting it. That um, there's no harm in identifying self-discovery of the fact that whether I need the skill or not. Actually, you also point out a very interesting element, and I've been thinking about it. That you know. While a leader will always know that their team members require certain technical skills, and they need to upskill themselves, and they will be told to go and learn a new thing like AI and other things. How will a leader know that they should have the skill and ability to know what kind of human skills are required within the team, what kind of a team they must build, and therefore what are the gap areas that exist within the team in collectively were human skills required to be imparted to the team members.
So the first and foremost thing, the leader needs to be self-aware.
Hmm.
A leader who is not self-aware of what kind of human skills will help them thrive in an organization, help with work-life balance, be inclusive themselves, embrace differences themselves. That person who does not have it in them will not be able to identify the gaps, or some skills may be missing in their team, right? So the first and foremost step, I would say, is the leader themselves need to be self-aware of these gaps, these skills for themselves, right? So when they are self-aware, they will automatically start seeing and identifying what's there and what's not there, right?
Hmm.
So that is my only answer for you, Manoj, on that, because it's easy to do a, like, okay, let me do a training need analysis and find out
Yes.
what human skills are missing. But no amount of training need analysis will give you an accurate picture of what actually is missing, right? Because, like, I'm going to go back to the old saying of no five fingers are alike. When you have a team, like I have a team of 10, none of them are like the other person, right? So they have, and they've grown up with different societal norms, family values, different geographies of the country. Their rights may be my wrongs, etc. But a person who's very self-aware of, hey, these are some things that are absolutely important for a person, an employee, a team member, to thrive and survive and thrive in an organization, that'll automatically kind of, if I may use the word, get superimposed on the team, because they will
Hmm.
see their leader being so self-aware. So then it's easier for the leader to just identify what's not happening and what's happening.
Thank you, Manju. And I think that's an extremely important new requirement, new expectation from the leaders also,
Yes.
that they're constantly self-aware beyond the whole work role or the technical capabilities and SME aspects that they are bringing in. Um, you know, the other aspect about this whole skilling that I've realized and would love to know your views is about typically we see skilling as my need. I will do an analysis for myself and say, oh, I think there is a gap here. And I need to pick up a skill for myself. So that's a typical way of approaching the need for skills, that I need a skill
Yeah.
for myself. But it's now that you're talking about human skill, which is increasingly about you being a part of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
I think individuals and also particularly leaders, I mean, how do you think from an L&D perspective, they must have the capability to understand that what skills they require for them to become an extremely important contribution to the teams that they're part of, the organization that they're part of, the ecosystem that they're part of.
So one thing is, from an L&D perspective, learning needs to be, or skilling needs to be holistic.
Hmm.
I can teach you leadership skills. I can teach you strategic thinking. I can teach you, critical thinking. I can teach you to be a visionary. But I can only make you aware on how to be a human, right? So when we do, for example, we are building something very interesting for Odessa called the Leadership Academy. And one thing we are very, very focused on is that we will build human leaders. Yes, all those strategic thinking and people management and all of that, collaboration, whatever else is required, it's a must have. But also, if we feel that active listening is something that is needed, we will build it in. If we feel, how do we manage and control our biases? See, we can't eliminate biases. As long as you're human and you have a working brain, you will have biases. But how do we let those biases not impact our decisions and the way we treat other people? That is also important. How do we, there's a part of servant leadership, for example. How do we listen first before we pass judgment? And also something very interesting that came up, we, a lot of organizations, Manoj, talk about risk taking appetite. But do we know that that risk taking appetite is a softer skill? It's not a hard skill. All right. It's how you look at risk. It's
Correct.
how you can assimilate and actually digest, probably not knowing the consequences of certain actions that or decisions you're going to make. And that's a very soft skill. It's a softer skill than a very technical skill, right? So I would look at it and call it holistic development, where we are, the kind of importance we give to leadership skills, the same amount of importance we give to human skills in their holistic development. So that's how we can build, and actually feed into the ecosystem, leaders who are first human, then leaders.
Thank you, Manju. That's well put, actually. And now that we have established this whole need for us and for organizations, particularly to look at the human skill aspects, let's just shift gear to the topic which is closer to your heart, which is about mental health awareness, also, Manju. Um, how do you see skilling becoming an extremely important catalyst in what we want to achieve around mental health awareness in an organization?
I think I'm going to go back to human skills. Unless you develop human skills, human outlook, um, um, like an outlook of empathy,
Hmm.
how you are accepting of people, how you are okay with. So, for example, if you're a leader, right, you have a top performer, but expecting them to be a top performer at all points in time, that's a wrong expectation, right?
Right.
So something interesting. We had a session from Manna recently in Odessa, skilling our leaders on how to identify, how do you see beyond just work, right? So that is why this kind of a human skill, where um, we are skilling leaders on how do they effectively look out for those small signs, how do they read in between the lines when somebody is even talking to you, active listening, how active listening will play a role. So for example, if one of your team members is going through something, trust me, if you have effective conversations with them, you will know that something is off. So how do you tune into those things which is not said openly, right? So those are some things which is not, I won't say accepted, but which is not looked upon as a skill,
Yes.
like intuition, empathy, openness, compassion, right? So those are some things that are very, very important, not only for you and your own mental health, but
Right.
also to you will act as a feeder into the ecosystem of mental well-being within your organization.
Absolutely, Manju. Yeah, thank you. So when it comes to mental health, and particularly this generally skilling also, one of the things that I've also observed is that many a time we feel that the process of skilling is also about absorbing some content.
Yeah.
So and because internet has so much content and we have content all around us on a day-to-day basis and we keep consuming content. So particularly soft skills
Yeah.
and human skills.
Yeah.
Um, for instance, empathy. If I have watched a few videos around empathy or read a few articles around empathy, how would that process be different from a formal skilling that I must go through actually? But when it comes to
Oh,
human skills,
yeah, yeah. So the difference here is intentionality.
mm,
I can have knowledge about many things. I can have knowledge about emotional intelligence, what empathy, and Brene Brown has done beautifully on empathy, right? So we have many videos, like you rightly said, so much content out there. But unless one, the first step is for me to internalize that content. Second step is for me to intentionally practice it, or be intentional about how I'm putting myself out there, having known this knowledge, right?
yes,
That is the primary difference. Because I can be well read,
yes, yes.
but it need not necessarily make me good with my human skills. It's every step of the way how intentional I am in bringing that skill that I've learned, or the knowledge that I have, to the forefront, where other people are impacted positively through it.
Beautiful, actually, Manju, because that's the difference between knowledge and skill, that it has to become functional. It has
Yeah.
to become application oriented, actually. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for that answer. And to the audience, if there are any questions from your side, feel free to drop the message and would love to ask those questions to Manju from your side. Um, the last question I have for you from my side, Manju, is about mental health awareness and the very need for employees to understand why they must be skilled appropriately
Yeah.
so that they become an extremely important constructive stakeholder
Yeah.
in employee mental health care.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first step to that is to understand or build the awareness that mental health, or somebody going through something, it's not a disease. Anybody can go through it anytime. It's and like I mentioned before, right, I like to call it mental fitness. Just like physical fitness, you exercise, you must be going to the gym every single day or doing yoga every single day, but there would be those down days where your knees are hurting or your elbows hurting or your arms are hurting and your shoulders hurting. Similarly, you might be a jolly good person, like, and very happy go lucky and all of that, but there would be those down days. There could be a repeat of those down days, and that's normal. So the first aspect of awareness is first understanding, hey, it's okay to be not okay, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is about, how do I play a role in helping others, right? So what can I do to help? And help does not mean, okay, you know what, I think you're not feeling too well, so you do want to talk to somebody. No, no. Sometimes just being there and listening, or just that person, the other person, to know that you're just there, is more than enough, is more than enough. So that kind of an awareness. See, today, I wouldn't say mental health is a taboo anymore. People are becoming more aware of it. But I feel somewhere there is also a mental block to it. No, 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 I'm fine. It's a phase. I'll go through it. Hey, go out and seek help. There's no harm in it, right? Even if it means you just want to talk and vent to somebody, that's okay. That's okay, right? So the awareness, I think the first part of awareness is for all of us to understand it's okay to be not okay, right? And it's normal. And there are so many resources and people to help you. And you seek and you shall receive, is my policy there. So that's the first thing, right? Because a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people, including me, when I went through a certain phase in my life, I've like, I hesitated before I reached. I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe I know I should keep it to myself. Don't do that. Because what helped me through that phase is because I reached out, right? So that's a part. There are people out there to help you. Use them. And it's absolutely okay to be not okay. That's my mantra. It's absolutely okay to be not okay. There will be good days, there will be mediocre days, and there'll be super bad days. That's okay. It's normal. It's a phase of life. I don't know if I've answered the question, but I've just
Thank you.
shared what
Yes,
I
yes,
felt.
indeed, indeed. No, absolutely, yes, Manju. I mean, the skills we need for us to be there for our colleagues so that they feel safe in reaching out to us is such an important contribution that we could make for them, and the very simple first step that we expect of them is that they reach out. And if you can contribute in a positive way in that process of their reaching out, you would have really done a big kind
Yeah.
of contribution there, actually. So that requires us to have the right skills and not just the knowledge part. Um, Manju, this was very good. And I think I'm just trying to read. There seems to be one question. Where do organizational leaders draw a line between being empathetic and expecting results that their employees have to deliver to meet the organizational objectives and targets set?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, and this is something that I have asked in my past. Where when I became a leader for the first time, I'm like, okay, because my natural, and let me be honest here, right? My natural self or inclination is result oriented. So even when I did my MBTI, my own assessment, right? I'm more result oriented than people oriented, right? But how do I draw that balance? See, results are important, but if you don't have people who are able to give you those results are of no use to you, right? So if you're able to be empathetic at the right time, and empathy does not mean, oh, I'm so sorry you're going through this, you don't have to do anything, we'll find something. No, that's not it. No matter what's happening, maybe there is a slowdown in a particular team member's journey, but that team member knowing that my leader is supportive of it, is aware of it, and will be there beside me for it, that's empathy, right? It's not stopping work. It's not saying, no, 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 go on a vacation, right? It could be, that could be one of the solutions too. But what I'm essentially saying is being there for this person when they need you the most, and being beside them, not in front of them, not behind them, but beside them. That's empathy for me as a leader, and that's exactly what I do for my team as well, where they could be going through a tough time, and I will support them, and I will even work with them, right, with in driving those results. But I think when a team member knows that their leader is completely supportive of them and is going to go hand in hand with them through this rough patch, or whether ups, downs, whatever, I think that will sort most of it out. But then when somebody absolutely needs a break, also taking that call, hey, I think this is not going to be, you need a break. And then ensuring results are done. Maybe somebody else will pitch in for it, you will pitch in, you will roll up your sleeves and pitch in. Absolutely. Just because you're a leader, it's not like you will sit only and instruct, right? When do you roll up your sleeves and pitch in, right? So that is what empathetic leadership means to me, right? I hope I've
Thank.
answered your question, Vidya.
Yeah, no, that was absolutely. I think that really clearly explains the role of a leader there, actually. And so Dr. Anil has a question about, yeah, among thousands of employees in an organizations, how can we find the colleague who may be going through a mental health issue or might require help in some way?
Yeah. Dr. Anil, my perspective is that is why we empower leaders, right? It's impossible for an HR team or say a smaller team who's handling mental well-being within an organization to identify it in a larger forum. But that is why we believe, and that is very, very important for an organization to enable, to skill and empower leaders to be able to do it within. So when leaders start looking out for those those nuances, those traits, those something missing within their teams, and then bring it back to HR or the team, we will be able to help. So that is why enabling and making your leadership powerful enough, skilled enough to be able to identify, what is going wrong where from a mental well-being standpoint, that's my solution to it, because it's impossible for us to find, like, we have 1,200 people, my previous organization had 4,500 people. It's impossible for an HR team to do that. But that's where we work with leaders, saying, hey, look out for this. That's skilling. That's where skilling, human skilling, comes in, becomes very, very important for leaders themselves to be self-aware, and then also to look out for those those signs within
Science.
their respective teams.
Thank you, Manju.
Dr.
Yeah,
Anil,
also,
I'm just checking if I've answered his question. That's my perspective.
no, absolutely, Manju. And this is so important. And also, ideally, if you look at it, I mean, the way physiological health issues are handled in any community, the ideal situation is that we don't have to really look out for such. Of course, we
Yeah.
should be alert and have the skills. But ideally, if there is anybody who's going through any issue, they should feel absolutely safe to
Yes.
open up and seek support and say that I need help here.
Yeah.
And
That's correct.
the entire ecosystem and co-workers should be able to rise up to the occasion and contribute in the
Absolutely.
right way, actually.
Completely agree with you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Manju. I think this
Thank you,
is
Manoj.
good, and this brings us to the end of this session. And I really appreciate you joining us, Manju, and sharing those very, very valuable insights on the very interesting connect between skill and mental health awareness here. And we thank those who logged in into the session. Mana Wellness believes that everyone can contribute to making workplace psychologically safe, provided they're imparted with the right skills, and which is why we are discussing this and having experts like Manju come and tell us about what must be done. Thank you, and see you soon. Another edition of LinkedIn Live brought to you
Thank
by
you.
Mana Wellness.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.